right, we're here with Deacon Ross Murray. Ross, thank you again for your presentation for us just a couple of days ago, and thank you for this time to ask some follow-up questions. It's good to be with you in this way.
Of course, thank you so much.
Yeah. So the first question I had is, what would you say are the primary pastoral care needs for LGBTQ plus youth? And I say that and also imagine that in some ways it's very similar answer for all youth, but I would also imagine that our LGBTQ plus siblings have a particular road they travel, which has additional struggles and additional joys. So could you share a bit about that?
Yeah, and I think, I think a lot about this sort of in like forms of concentric circles. So I will say, in terms of for LGBTQ youth, there is this process of self-discovery which does exist for all youth. That's kind of what adolescence is. But for LGBTQ youth, in some ways, it is often, oh, the things that I am realizing or learning or knowing about myself don't necessarily match what I have been told, what I've been taught, what culture has taught me, what assumptions or expectations have come from, my parents or my community or my peers. And so there is one figuring that out for themselves and like learning and discovering that. Who am I? Who did God make me to be? And then there is the relationships part of that as well. Then are people going to see me? Are they going to accept me? How are they going to treat me? Right. And that, peers, teachers, family is very important for how people see and understand themselves. And our churches as well. And so there's a little bit of that. Okay, I've had to learn this for myself, and now I have to represent myself and be in relationship with other people out in the wider world. And then I guess as I kind of like go out in those concentric circles, and this is very much a now answer to seeing how much rhetoric, politicization, legislation has been specifically targeted at LGBTQ youth that are going to impact their lives. There is this kind of like overarching cultural, am I going to be safe? Am I going to be okay? That also, impacts what do I know to be true about myself, and how do I be in relationship with those people that are the closest relationships for me?
Yeah, and that's a different level of I would guess just stress on that community as opposed to straight cis youth who are able to not who have the privilege of not having to worry about that quite as much, right?
Yeah, and I mean, if you think of it this way too, it it takes work and energy and discernment to figure out who God made you to be, right? And some time to be able to do that. And then it takes some, stress and work and discernment and energy in order to have safe, trusted relationships with your parents or your schools or your churches as well. And just so like you've built that network of safety around you too. And then you see sort of like, how to put this, the government coming after you, or saying that you can't have those relationships with your teachers or with your parents, or with your doctors. And so, we have to build this network for ourselves as well. And we don't need that sort of like meddling coming from outside, because it is hard enough to build those networks of support, especially from supportive adults.
Yeah, that's helpful. Which I think makes, the role of someone working with youth in a church setting or another place of faith or nonprofit setting all the more important, right? Because if we can just kind of bolster that community of support and care and affirmation and love, that will help. It won't change the situation, but I imagine it will.